trial of Officer Derek Chauvin will be taking place potentially in Minnesota. We're not exactly sure about the venue at this point. Why is this important? Why should we be talking about it? Well, there's number one, a lot of anticipation. And number two, a lot of fake news, a lot of fundamental misunderstandings about this case. And if those misunderstandings persist, there could be more violence if Officer Chauvin is found not guilty. And there is a real chance of that, ladies and gentlemen. All right, to recap, back in May, Derek Chauvin and 3 other officers arrested George Floyd. This infamous footage, Chauvin with the knee on the neck of George Floyd. All right, a couple of things to go through that you may not know about this case, which are important. What happened that day was absolutely terrible, but I believe that these facts are relevant and we need to understand them. The public does, or else we could see more carnage like we did last summer. Number one, did you know that George Floyd, before this moment, begged the officers to put him on the ground? He had a panic attack in the back of the police car.
My wrist, man. My wrist, man, please. I can't take this, man. Okay. And I'm on the ground. I'm on the ground. I'm on the ground. I'm on the ground. I'm on the ground.
Is it decisive? Does it make a difference? I don't know, but we should know about this. And it was de-emphasized or ignored by much of the left-leaning media. The 4 officers who arrested George Floyd, who were involved in that moment, that episode, 2 of them were people of color. As you know, this has been portrayed in the starkest racial terms. I think this is relevant, that one of the officers was Asian, another officer was black. Also this, George Floyd had an extensive criminal record. Does it make a difference? Is it relevant? I think it's relevant. Does it make a difference? I don't know. But again, we should know. And check out 2007, aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon. Ultimately, was guilty of holding a knife to a pregnant woman's belly. This is serious stuff. All right, but does any of this negate what Officer Chauvin did? I mean, we all saw him with that knee on the neck, and it looked horrific. But no one ever really considered this in the mainstream media, that according to potentially ridiculous guidelines and rules, but they were guidelines and rules, this maneuver was authorized in the Metropolitan Police Department manual. They called it a neck restraint, non-deadly force option, defined as compressing one or both sides of a person's neck with an arm or leg. That was in the official manual that was in effect that day last year. Those are interesting facts. The jury's going to see that. Why didn't the media tell us about that? Because that would have complicated the narrative. And that might have made the Black Lives Matter movement look slightly less righteous. If all of the facts about what happened to George Floyd were understood, maybe some of this wouldn't have happened, though. And I think that's very interesting, because the narrative is a cheap one, and they keep pushing it. It's also dishonest that people of color have something to fear from police.
We watched Ahmaud Arbery in what looked like a game hunt chase down. These were one of them was a former police officer.
White America needs to come to terms with the fact that we live in a racist society and that there are bad cops. Police brutality is real. Disproportionate police brutality against people of color.
Years and decades of police brutality, and frankly, because of unacceptable and reprehensible practices.
We found that African Americans were disproportionately killed by officers, actually at a rate of 2.5 times greater than those who are white.
Everyone black I know feels hunted.
This over-the-top rhetoric helps no one. The nitwits, we'll call it. Let's see. This is very important stuff, isn't it? Who made who cry?
So when you say the reverse happened, explain to us what you mean by that.
A few days before the wedding, she was upset about something pertaining to, yes, the issue was correct, about flower girl dresses. And it made me cry. And it really hurt my feelings. And I thought, in the context of everything else that was going on in those days leading to the wedding, that it didn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. None of that makes sense. I mean, is she in 8th grade? She's talking about her sister-in-law making her cry, or I made her cry, or she made me cry. You know, we still have troops in Afghanistan. There's stuff going down in Syria. And we've got Hunter Biden running around. But this is a CBS News joint here. Harry showed up, and he had this to say.
For all these years before Meghan, you were living your life as a royal, Prince Harry, the beloved Prince Harry, and that you were enjoying that life. We don't get the impression that you were feeling trapped in that life.
Enjoying the life because there were photographs of me smiling while I was shaking hands and meeting people. Like, I'm sure you guys have covered some of that. That's a part of the job. That's a part of the role. That's what's expected. No matter who you are in the family, no matter what's going on in your personal life, no matter what's just happened, if the bikes roll up and the car rolls up, you got to get dressed, you got to get in there, you wipe the tears away, shake off whatever you're thinking about, and you got to be on your A game.
Welcome to the world, Harry. I mean, we weren't picked up by motorcades, but everybody's got to shake off their personal issues and be on their A game when it's time to go to work. Harry, I don't think, understood that. And, but what he finally figured out was racism is real. That's a gift that his wife gave him.
I've spent many years doing the work and doing my own learning. But my upbringing and the system of which I was brought up in and what I've been exposed to, I wasn't aware of it to start with. But my God, it doesn't take very long to suddenly become aware of it.
Yeah, because you said you really weren't aware of unconscious bias and all that that represents until you met Meg.
Yeah, you know, sad as it is to say, it takes living in her shoes, in this instance, for a day or those first 8 days to see where it was going to go.
All right, Oprah asked him about unconscious bias, and she opened his eyes to all this stuff. Because before, I'm sorry, and Harry seems like a nice guy, but his brand was conscious bias. I mean, full out wearing a swastika. He got caught doing this and saying all kinds of awful, weird stuff when it comes to race and Jews. And all right, I hope Harry learned about some of this stuff long before he met Meghan, who, by the way, thinks that this is the greatest story ever told, Meghan and Harry's story.
So your story with the prince does have a happy ending?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really did.
It has a happy ending because you made it so.
Yeah, greater than any fairy tale you've ever read. Yeah.
Greater than any fairy tale.
Than any fairy tale you've ever read, okay? I read Aladdin, right? With the magic carpets, the genies in the bottles. But no, this is the greatest fairy tale. They had an argument about money. I think that's what it all gets down to. And they moved out. That is not the greatest fairy tale ever told. One thing, we only really saw the porch, okay? 2 chairs and a small portion of the backyard. This is the house. Take a look at it. Something like $15 million. How do they get that money? They signed, well, one of their deals is with Spotify, and another one with Netflix. These aren't filmmakers. These aren't, I don't know what they are, but like the Obamas, they're in, they're cool, and they get all that money for being in and cool. There is one cool thing about this house, though. Actually, it's a great house. It had this extra feature, a chicken coop. Good for them. They had their own chicken coop. And I think that's going to be good for, what's his name again? Archie, Prince Archibald. Oh, not going to be a prince. Yeah, sore subject.